Welcome. Yes, my name is Timaree Hagenburger. I feel like I should go up on the high stage. You want me to go up there? Oh, no, right here. Okay. Thank you for coming. I am speaking about a very important topic, your brain. And I usually do this presentation in an hour and 20 minutes. So this is a 30-minute. So I'm going to go as fast as I can, but give you some very important information. The first thing that I want to mention to you, I want to talk a little bit about how our brains work, and then we'll talk about what happens. But something to think about, we know the term Alzheimer's disease, and that was actually coined by Dr. Alzheimer in 1904, actually 1906. It's been 112 years, and we still don't have medications that even touch it. Every 70 seconds, someone is diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So by the time a lot of us are eating the way we're eating to live a long time, and by the time we're 85, at this current trajectory, it's going to be a 1 in 2 chance. So it's going to be either you or you're taking care of someone who has Alzheimer's. I mean, that's just how it works. So we have to focus on prevention. Now, not when we start to see symptoms. And we can do things later, but the most power we have is right now, and most people don't have any idea how much power they have in their fork. But you have an amazing amount. So thank you for coming. I want you to apply this information. So, how do our brains work? So we have gray matter on the outside of our brains, and then on the inside we have white matter. And the gray matter is kind of like the computers, and the white matter is like the cables, okay, that link everything together. So all of our billions of brain cells enable us to be what we are, right? To think, to move, to speak, of course, to anticipate the future, and to manage our complex and everly more complex lives. And you'll know that if you have ever had someone, and I've had several grandparents who have passed that have had Alzheimer's, they lose all of this. And so not only do they lose the physical ability to speak and communicate, but we lose the connections. And so we're going to talk about that in a minute. So these synaptic connections that link the brain cells, they link them to each other, they link them to other parts of the brain, to our muscles, so that we have control over what we do, and to other organs. So right now, your liver and your kidneys are talking to your brain and back and forth, trying to figure out what exactly to detoxify and how to process and all kinds of things that we don't have to have conscious thought happening, but your brain is working as well as all those organs. So I like to have everybody think about what's the most important thing to you. Most important. Would people say their car? Probably not. Would people say, now if you ask my 15-year-old, maybe his pair of shoes, because he loves shoes. But when you talk to people who've had some life experience, what's the very most important thing to them? Their people, right? Whether that's their family or their close friends. But it's actually more than that, because you could leave everybody in place, but you could take everything away. And how would you do that? You lose the connections. So your family's there, but you don't know who they are, right? Your memories, gone. You can't plan for the future, right? That is the worst of the worst, because your body is there, but your brain is not. So that's what we want to work on. So I want to teach you a little bit about how Alzheimer's works. And there's different theories, and so this is important because this is the #1 cause of dementia. And people used to think that as you aged, that's just what happened, right? So Dr. Goldhammer talked about high blood pressure. And when you look at the textbooks, the nutrition textbooks that I teach from, because that's what's out there. The medical school textbooks, they actually identify age as a risk factor for high blood pressure. It's not. Not in the world where they don't eat the way we eat. When you eat the way we eat, as you age, your blood pressure goes up, yes. But areas that don't eat this way, the 2-year-olds and the 92-year-olds have the same blood pressure. So aging is not a risk if you treat yourself well, right? So the same thing with dementia. You're not supposed to be demented as you age. It's not Alzheimer's, right? Okay? This is a disease. And I'm going to show you the brain looks different when this disease process happens. And it doesn't have to be an old person. I'll share that with you too. So there's a couple different theories, and actually not theories, but just the mechanisms, but I'm going to add to this. So you may have heard about plaques, these beta amyloid plaques that develop in the brain. So there's a certain amount of this beta amyloid protein that gets produced all the time. But you have a system, like a little custodial system, maintenance system in your body, in your brain, in order to clear all of these proteins away. Unless you don't do things like sleep, okay? And there's all kinds of little things. But there are certain things you can do in your life to make more plaque, make more of these beta amyloid plaques, and other things that can impair your ability to clear them. Okay, so these proteins are supposed to just be in there, but when they start to clump together and get sticky, they make these plaques, and they look like little meatballs. It's a good word to put with this, okay? Meatballs. You don't want these meatballs. Now, in these plaques, they've been able to see on autopsy, they also contain copper and iron and zinc and other elements and like aluminum, okay? And what we also know is that they tend to cluster around cholesterol. Okay, these are important words that you need to put together. Now we also have tangles that form. So you have a system in your brain of different types of protein. One is called tau protein, and that makes for almost like a railroad track of a transportation system to get nutrients in order to get them to the cells. What happens is this system, the plaques, start to tangle, and then the tangling, look at it, it looks like a Halloween, nasty, creepy little tangle. All those tangles occur, and then the nutrients can't get through. So we have this pipeline that's supposed to supply the nutrients. It just starts to disintegrate, okay? So that protein collapses, transport tracks can't stay straight, the nutrients can't move through. So we have this brain, and I'll show you, the physical brain shrinks and the cells die. Because these are like any other cells. Without nutrients, they can't survive. Without oxygen, they can't survive. So a severely diseased brain with Alzheimer's, look how small it looks. So that is disease. That is not aging, okay? Now, what if there's more to the story, though, than just plaques and tangles? That's typically where people stop talking about this, but I'm going to take it to the next level. What if it's actually a perfect storm? It's the plaques, it's the tangles, and it's more. And the great part about this is we can prevent the more, okay? So, I don't know if you've heard, but Alzheimer's has been reclassified as a vascular disease, type 3 diabetes. Okay, this should get your attention because the atherosclerosis that I talk about with my students in our heart, guess what? It happens in all of our vessels, including the brain. And what we actually see is the LDL, the low density lipoprotein. You've heard about this, the quote-unquote bad cholesterol. These little taxis, because that's what they are, they cross the blood-brain barrier, and when they cross the blood-brain barrier, and we never used to think that. We thought that cholesterol in the brain was separate than cholesterol in the body. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, and every time it does, it damages the barrier and makes it easier for cholesterol to go across. And do you remember cholesterol is what the protein plaques clustered around? Okay, so I want you to bring those together. So we have, the brain is very sensitive to lack of oxygen, very sensitive. So we have cardiogenic, heart promoting, right, the synthesis of dementia. Aging brain is very sensitive to lack of oxygen. The poor blood flow causes brain cell death, any tissue without oxygen. Shrinkage, atrophy, and that dementia. And we already know that there's impaired circulation with type 2 diabetes, okay? We also see that the atherosclerosis plaques themselves contribute to the Alzheimer's plaques. So we see, I don't know, you may have had people in your lives who've had different levels of dementia, and some progress really fast, and some are very slow. We see that if you have atherosclerosis, your time to full-blown Alzheimer's doubles. So it goes that fast. And it makes sense. You're damaging the blood-brain barrier. You are accumulating the cholesterol in the plaques. That aging cholesterol goes into the brain cells, and it speeds up your little machine of making amyloid. Those meatballs are sped up, okay, are fueled. You may have heard about a gene, whether you have this ApoE4, this epsilon gene, from your family, you're going to have higher chance of Alzheimer's. It actually goes even beyond 9 to 15 times higher risk. So people think, oh my gosh, I'm just, there's nothing I can do. Wait a second, let's figure out what that gene does. So we know that gene is the principal carrier of cholesterol in the brain. All right, so guess what? If you maintain a low blood cholesterol level, then that gene can basically be silenced. So people in the world that have the highest prevalence of this gene in Nigeria also have the lowest Alzheimer's, because their cholesterol levels are low, because they don't eat what we eat. Okay? So it's so exciting. I have goosebumps because this is so powerful. This is incredible information. Okay, sirtuins, and I know this is technical. I'm going to get into practical food stuff. Hang in there, but I want to lay this foundation so that you understand. Sirtuins are enzymes, and they keep the DNA tightly coiled. So you have billions of miles of DNA, and if it was all just crazy in there, it would not work well. So it keeps it kind of like coiled around a yarn, like a spool of yarn, and when they keep them like this, they'll silence some genes depending on how that yarn is twisted around, or the DNA is twisted. So we see a loss in this activity results in the accumulation of more of those plaques and tangles. So the idea is, people are thinking, oh, okay, drugs, to get these sirtuins working. How about instead of that, we just figure out what's hurting them and just stop with those? So we learn that AGEs, and I'm going to come back to this, but advanced glycation end products will really suppress these the sirtuin activity. And we can measure in people's urine their AGE level, and I'll talk about the link with nutrition in a second. The greatest level in the urine equals the greatest cognitive decline and the most brain shrinkage. So it's very well established. Okay, so that's scary. So let's start doing some good things, yeah? Okay, let's protect your brain with smart choices. So the information I'm giving you is crazy supported by research, okay? So I am a research girl. I am the nutrition professor, and I take my advice that I give to my students. I teach full-time, and I've done this. I'm a dietitian 19 years, okay? And I take my advice that I give very seriously. So this is backed up with research. So number one, severely eliminate or severely limit harmful fats. So when people think about fats, the first thing you should think about is cheese, okay? Because cheese is the number one source of saturated fat in the American diet, followed by chicken. Okay, so whoever got that idea out there that chicken was the white meat that we should all be eating, and no, okay? Now, I want to make sure that I preface this because I grew up eating omnivore. I ate everything, right? My mom was a dietitian. But when you learn and you know better, you do better. So there, you do the best with the information you have at the time. And I always gave the best guidance I could, but when I know now, I'm not afraid to say this, I do it, right? So that I walk the talk completely 100%. So I want you to be able to say, you know, I used to do that, I used to eat that way, and I didn't know. Now I know, and this is what I'm doing now. That's how it goes. There's no shame. You just do the best you can. So cholesterol, saturated fat, trans fat, and oils. Okay, and I can come back to some of this. It's not food, okay? It may be out there, it may look like food, it's not food, okay? Because you want a brain that is going to serve you and be able to maintain the quality of life that you want for as long as you want, okay? So that you can make your own decisions. Now, remember those AGEs, and I'm gonna come back to this as well. How do you dramatically reduce your exposure to those AGEs that turn down the sirtuin expression? Protein and fat, or sugar or protein and fat plus heat. So this is, we're gonna come back to this and you're gonna see which foods, if you take a high protein food, like a barbecued chicken piece, right? We're gonna very high levels of AGEs. Okay, focus on fiber, but fiber-rich foods, not a fiber supplement. We don't see that that works in the same way that food does. And you're always gonna hear from me, whole foods will always be the choice because the world is so complicated, foods are so complicated that it is crazy to think we could just take one compound out of a food and say, this is it, it's curcumin, take it by the supplement. What about the turmerones that are in turmeric that are not in curcumin, and those work too? Oh, yeah, we forgot about that. Why don't you just get the root at the supermarket and just grate it right on top of your salad? Yes, right? Sometimes we like to make things more complicated than it really needs to be. So focus on fiber-rich foods. Where do we find fiber? Only in plants, because animals have bones to hold them up, plants have fiber. Now, polyphenols, now we're getting into those amazing phytonutrients. So these will work as antioxidants to protect our cells, our brain cells as well. Dark green leafy vegetables, okay? So I normally wear sleeveless shirts because I have some pretty nice biceps. And and my students, they're like, oh yeah, you work out? Yes, I do. And I had someone who came to my table and she said, why aren't you I want to see your muscles. I said, well, it's a little cooler today. She said, no, you got to show those muscles. She said, she said, you're lean and mean. I said, I'm not mean. She said, oh yeah, maybe lean and green. Yes, okay? So that's the new thing is lean and green. You can just imagine, I'll do some push-ups if you want me to. Okay. So dark green leafy vegetables and berries. So study was done, handful of berries added to reduced brain aging by 2 years minimum. Handful of berries every day, colorful as possible. So what do we see these polyphenols do? inhibit the formation of those plaques and the tangles in the brain physiology. They also can help pull metals out. So, we've been exposed to all kinds of metals and drinking water and all kinds of things. They can do that, including like cilantro and parsley. Always should be included in your salad. Those should not just be purchased for like 1 tablespoon for a recipe. No. I have a crazy salad in my cookbook, and I look when I go shopping for the biggest bunch of parsley, and that goes in my weekly salad, crazy salad mix. And it's so delicious. It's fantastic. Oh, I'm going the wrong direction. There we go. Saffron has been shown to diminish the symptoms of Alzheimer's. Turmeric is one of the most anti-inflammatory compounds we have as a food, but you want to make sure you mix it with black pepper always. A little pinch of black pepper. It can be the powder or it can be the root of turmeric. And turmeric looks just like ginger, except when you crack it open, it's bright orange, and you can freeze it. So, because it will mold in the refrigerator if you keep it too long, but I slice it up and then freeze it, and then I can put it into smoothies or do whatever. And it works really well on the microplane. That is excellent for ginger and turmeric. Okay, but you want to combine it with black pepper because the black pepper will help your liver not break down the turmeric. So it actually can end up with blood levels in the thousands of % more. Okay, so don't forget about that. I have a chai spice blend in my cookbook that uses the turmeric and the black pepper. Now, enjoy other power foods for your brain. So Neil Barnard wrote a great book. Excellent. Neil Barnard wrote a great book called Power Foods for the Brain several years ago. It's still a great resource. So we want veggies, fruits, beans, whole grains, nuts, seeds, especially important to be rich in vitamin E, but not vitamin E supplements. Years ago, vitamin E was all that for supplements. I think it was 2008. It was $1 billion a year in the United States was spent just on vitamin E supplements. Now no doctors do vitamin E supplements because people started bleeding out. They didn't realize they had ulcers. They took vitamin E, thinned the blood, they bled out. So we want vitamin E from food, and I'm going to drill down a little more with that. B6 and folate. We want cholesterol-lowering foods. We've seen cholesterol is a problem in the brain. It causes a place for the tangles and the proteins to cluster around. So oats and barley. Legumes are, oh my gosh, legumes are the best, right? They're fantastic. So beans, peas, lentils. Soy is excellent. So do not be swayed by any of the marketing out there that's having people think you get man boobs from soy. No. Actually, what happens is if you consume dairy, your estrogen levels skyrocket and your testosterone drops. And that's really, really important that we realize that, because dairy, you're drinking or consuming food that's from a pregnant cow. That's straight estrogen. The phytonutrients and the phytoestrogens actually reduce your risk of cancer, breast cancer, even increase longevity for people who've had cancer. It's very well established. And almonds and walnuts are great. Okay, so let's do a little bit more on vitamin E. So vitamin E rich foods, greens, spinach, chard, turnip greens, mustard greens. I just pulled like the very, highest levels. Avocado and asparagus. Seeds, every single day, flaxseed, every day. Every day some chia seeds are excellent as well. Walnuts, almonds, pistachios. Who doesn't love pistachios? Oh, right, peanuts, these are all great. Folate-rich foods, broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, asparagus, beets. Greens again, collard greens and turnip greens and mustard greens and parsley. Folate is from the word foliage, right? So that's the greens, that's where we want to get those. Lentils are an excellent source of folate as well. And it's so funny because my students will say, oh my gosh, what do you eat? Isn't it restrictive? And I say, I don't have time to tell you what I eat because there's 1,000 edible greens. My friend grows 52 varieties of beans. Yeah, okay. So no, we don't have any problem with that. And I heard Dr. Goldhammer mention about alcohol. So alcohol actually interferes with folate absorption and increases iron absorption, and iron is a pro-oxidant in the brain. And we saw iron was in the plaques as well. So how do you get the resveratrol and all the good nutrients? Eat the grapes, right? And if you are thinking, oh, I want ice cream, I've been craving like bonbons, freeze your grapes. Who has done that? And oh, frozen grapes? Oh, okay. All you do is rinse them and put them in the freezer. Okay, they're fantastic. B6 rich foods. So again, we've got lots to choose from. Green vegetables, sweet potatoes, beans, bananas, whole grains, nuts. And it's a good idea to take a supplement, independent for B12, independent of whether you eat animal products or not. All right, now I wanted to show you one other thing about the AGEs. So they did a study with 549 foods, and look how much chicken comes up. So we have chicken skin, fried bacon, and this, you know, this is all bacon, 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 bacon on everything. You are corroding your brain. I mean, it's insane. So hot dogs, more chicken, chicken nuggets, oh my goodness. And people think chicken is a good food. It's not. Okay, now let's talk about protecting, shielding your brain from toxic metals, because I told you there's metals in there too. So without question, switch to a plant-based diet, but there's more than what you'd think to this story. So it provides you with the minerals you need, because the minerals are essential. We can't make them. They're from the Earth's crust, right? However, it doesn't lead to the excess. What happens is, for iron is a great example. If you consume iron from plant sources and you don't need any extra, the body will not absorb it. However, if you consume it with heme iron, which is blood iron from animal products, it actually goes around that system, hijacks that system, and gets absorbed anyway. So you're not trusting your own body to be able to regulate. Okay, it's very important. Eliminate multivitamins that include iron or copper or zinc, because you're getting too much. Take the B12, like I mentioned. Avoid antacids that contain aluminum. Does anybody remember Maalox? Right? M-A-A-L. You're actually drinking aluminum. Okay? Cheese also has aluminum added during processing. Check breakfast cereals. You don't want something that has all of the minerals that you need all day in one bowl. Okay? That more is not better. Cookware, skip aluminum, and cast iron will actually increase the amount of iron you're absorbing. It's not a great idea if you're trying to reduce the amount of iron in your brain. Okay? Once a month if you're using the pan, not a big deal. But if you're using it more, then it's something to think about. Aluminum-free baking powder. My student's like, oh my gosh, where do I get that? Right next to the other baking powder. You just have to find the one that says aluminum free. We don't need any aluminum in there. There is no dietary need for aluminum ever, okay? Skip the aluminum containing packets of salt and coffee creamer. It's not going to typically be on the ingredients, but it's in there in processing. And then limit the use of aluminum cans. We don't need to be drinking soda anyway. There's no redeeming quality, okay? All right, sleep. Now this is beyond nutrition, but I have to talk about this. Sleep. The very most important thing you can do is sleep. And I tried to cheat the system because I have so many things to do, and I thought, oh, sleep. But sleep is the only time when your brain can be cleansed. That's how you get back to that clean fluid in your brain, and it slows down the production of that little meatball machine, the amyloid machine. First half of the night is slow wave sleep. reduces your stress hormones like cortisol. It files away the experiences from the day, like the facts and events, and it maximizes melatonin release. Now, this is actually from 10 to 2. So at school, all of my assignments are done by 10 for online submission, because what happens is they'll stay up until the deadline. And so they'll say, oh, I'll just sleep then from 12 to 4. You know, that's fine. No. 10 to 2 is the sweet spot. The second half of the night is for the REM sleep, but that's the dreaming and integrating your memories into new skills, okay, and emotions. We actually have a rising cortisol when you get into this deep sleep, and it kind of dulls the emotional memories. This doesn't happen with PTSD. They keep living it over and over again in vivicolor. Very fascinating. Amyloid production goes way down, and on that circadian rhythm, if you don't sleep, you make more amyloid, and that collects as plaque. This resets your emotional balance and shores up your pain control. People who go to bed earlier are also thinner than people who stay up late. Very well established. 10 is your ideal. Be a sleep ninja. Okay? Protect that. Do a technology and artificial light curfew at dark. Start bringing out the candles. Okay? Now, oh, I have to put this together because this is in the wrong order. Sorry. Okay. So, mental exercise. Just a minute about this. It doesn't matter what education you had, what you didn't have, what you've done in the past. That can't be changed. What you can do now makes a difference. They actually did a research study where they did 10 sessions, just 10 sessions. Then they checked on people 5 years later, and they counteracted 7 to 14 years worth of aging. So all that you can do makes a difference. And you don't want to do crossword puzzles all day. You want to learn a new language. You want to play an instrument, something that's hard, and something that involves multiple senses. Okay? Physical activity. This is the only way to actually reverse aging in your brain, is by physical activity. We have something called brain-derived neurotropic factor that as soon as you get moving, it starts to pump out. And you know it reduces blood pressure and it helps with circulation, all the things we need to do to protect our beautiful brains. And the goal is 30 to 40 minutes at least 3 times a week. But do it every day. Your body will thank you for it, and your brain will. This is crazy. Okay, so Lipitor is one of the most common meds that are given right as a statin drug for cholesterol. So they say, oh, it's safe. It only increases your risk for memory problems, liver damage, cataracts, muscle damage, high risk of diabetes. 90% of patients who are taking it are being treated for their diet. Other cholesterol-lowering drugs also harm your brain, as do sleep meds, as do antidepressants, as do antihistamines, as do Versed and other anti-anxiety meds, as do acid blockers, as do blood pressure meds. So medications cause problems, and look at how many people are on a lot, right? They add up. Okay. So, last here is check your habits before you wreck your beautiful brains. Avoid the bad fats and reduce your AGEs. Give the oil the heave-ho. I don't use 1 drop of oil in any of my recipes on my website, in my cookbook, not a drop. And I grew up as a little Italian girl in the kitchen with olive oil, right? And I have completely taken what I learned and put it into practice. Avoid those excess metals. Lots of vitamin-rich whole food. Dump that processed junk. It's not food. It may look like food, but it is not food. Have a B12 supplement. Make sure you're physically active. Make it fun. Start wherever you can, but be consistent. Every day you do it. You don't ask yourself, do I feel like exercising? No, you just do it. You just zip it and you go. All right? So don't have that conversation in your brain. Nope, zip it, go. Make it social, make it fun, schedule it, get mentally stimulated, sleep That is a gift. Have the next day start at night. Instead of thinking about trying to extend your day, say, my day tomorrow starts now. And I'm going to charge myself like you charge your phone. Okay? Your choices have power. Override your genetic risks, because life is better when you love the food that loves you back.